So, hi everyone, I'm Ryan Restivo, and I am proud to present Yeseo as my RJI Fellowship project. In my experience, I've really connected with, building tools to help people do their jobs better. When I first tried to learn to code many years ago, one of the first things I ever made was a Slack bot, and then this kind of connected to eventually doing this, right? And this project's connected a ton of things for me. Um, I wanted to use what I've learned over the years to serve people, and RJI's purpose of building free, accessible, practical innovation, I really fit where I wanted to go. So I really appreciate RJI's support in this fellowship and to make this for folks. The goal of SEO is a Slack app, right? The goal is to reduce the time to come up with that relevant headline, the right keywords to use, and give you the right information at the right time to get your work seen and read, right? For reporters, editors, audience engagement teams, or anyone who wants to get their story out there, SEO will give them the power of seeing every important keyword in their story and getting insights they can act upon. Where today you have to spend time doing keyword research or workshopping headlines amongst your colleagues in a Slack channel. Now you can just input the story into the app, get an instant analysis of the most relevant keywords, trends data on those words, and get ideas even from GPT-3 to generate strong headlines and descriptions. And it supports language models in English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese right now. Yeseo is using the power of natural language processing to help newsrooms generate better, relevant, contextual data for their audiences. In the research right through the fellowship, right, talking with a lot of folks, we know that the headline is the most impactful thing that you as a journalist have the power over to make sure that your work is read. So before you had to think through comparing your story to your headline, SEO can analyze your story, published or not, and tell you the most relevant keywords that are in it and give you actionable insights. And it's got a bunch of other fun things too, right? And it's as easy as entering a link or pasting text, right? It will do the rest. It'll understand if it's in English, if it's in Spanish, if it's French, right? If it's from a publisher in Quebec, right? It'll understand if it's in French. And then you then pick like where the data should be run. If you're running it in a certain city or a certain US state or a certain country, and then pick a time frame, right, to run that data. So let's say if you were the Philadelphia Inquirer and you were wondering what trends were relevant when, I think it was about a month ago, right, when Senator John Fetterman checks himself into the hospital, you can run it through SEO and get an analysis on how relevant your keywords are to your headline, explore your keywords and get some trends for him at that moment in time. And you can get volumes of searches specific for the Philadelphia market in just a few quick steps. Sometimes SEO could feel like we're trying to write for machines only, but SEO is trying to put the power of machines, natural language processing, and AI capabilities in your hands to make your work more relevant. So let's say in this example, right, about the Philadelphia Eagles, there's a little Philly tendency here. So this story, I could get headline suggestions from the emerging technology GPT-3. That was something that has, emerged throughout the process of this project, and trying to think about practical applications for it, right? So you can click that green button that says suggest headlines, and it will generate 5 ideas for headlines for your stories. These emerging technologies are great. They give us ways that can help us do our jobs better, but they are hardly perfect still at the moment, right? So there's something where you could take them and make them fit your publication style. You can fit it into your style guide or anything that you need to find. And so far in the data that I have amongst people who've used it so far, I found that over half of all stories have resulted in a GPT-3 prompt being clicked, right? Newsrooms want to know how AI can help them, and the goal of SEO is to give them that practical data that they can act upon. They could take those suggestions and they can run with them, and they can change them how they need to. If you've ever been in a Slack channel where you've struggled to workshop a headline, right? SEO makes it as easy as sharing that story, the green share button, into the channel, and then you can click the GPT-3 prompt and you could generate those headlines in a channel, and it's as easy as somebody generating those ideas for you. And then you can talk through what would be best and tell everybody in the channel that you've shared that story, and you guys can all dig and collaborate on it. It features a comprehensive app homepage that will continue to have updates, documentation, room for feedback. Definitely digging feedback right now, and support issues. And it'll always update to the latest and greatest code after you install. You don't have to change anything. It'll all be changed. It'll all continue to change and get better. Since RJI's purpose is giving free practical tools, you can install it right now by going to yeseo.app, and this is the page that you'll see. And you can see there's add to Slack buttons. They should work perfectly. And you should be able to install it right now into your Slack workspace, depending on your workspace's settings. This is just the beginning of where I'd like to take this. I know there's a bunch of improvements that I'm already looking to make, and there are things that I'm still researching and looking into to build on top of the core experience and try to find ways to make things even better. I'd like to thank RJI and the University of Missouri for their support. Without them, this wouldn't have happened. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit yeseo.app today. You can follow me or Yeseo on the various social platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And I'm so appreciative of everyone who has participated in making my project come to life and happen. And I'm looking forward to the future of what this may bring.
Great. So we already have a couple questions. The first is, will this be effective for very small news markets?
Yes, this is a good question, right? So, so right now, the app will use DMAs, which are so I live on Long Island, New York, right? So the New York City market, it'll use those kinds of markets, but it can also use US states. So it can also broaden out to the whole United States or a particular country or a region, right? So we had someone testing in Canada, and they were like, okay, that's great, but like, could I get the region specific to Quebec, right? So we kind of figured out how to narrow that down. So I feel like I think it will be able to get relevant data for where you're trying to look at. And I'm happy to have a conversation if you feel like you didn't.
All right, next question. Very neat and thoughtful tool. One of the concerns about GPT generation and SEO is that it may narrow the diversity of expression, which in this case might result in lots of headlines that look the same. What are your recommendations for avoiding that outcome with this and other SEO tools?
So, I mean, I could speak to what I've done. I know that in tinkering with these models since like December or so, I intentionally asked for diverse headlines, right? Because my purpose was think about, okay, these are going to be ideas that a newsroom can take and run with. If I can give 5 ideas, I don't want them all to look exactly the same. So, so trying to build a prompt where it said, okay, it'll kind of be a little more diverse. It'll try to take other pieces of the story that will lead to probably 4 of them not being very good, or maybe 1 of them being terrible. But at least you'll have 1 that you can take and kind of run with as a kind of a core idea. And then so it'll support 5 headline ideas right now, and it supports 3 description ideas. And then there's a little bit of code in there that does some like subheads. But I'm trying to figure out how to kind of maximize how we can use this tool. So at the end of the day, right, like it's an emerging technology. It can help a lot of folks. And we try to need to figure out ways to kind of like help do the jobs that we need to now.
All right, next question. Does it work with articles in Spanish?
Yes, it should. I actually just got feedback from a newsroom in Argentina that they had some questions about some of the Spanish trend, I guess the Spanish model. So I'm gonna probably, once we're done, take a look at that issue. But it should work with that model. You should be able to enter an article in that /prep command if it's not published, and it'll be Spanish text, and the app will understand that it's in Spanish and use and apply the correct model. Similarly, if you have a link, you would input that link, and it should understand from reading the text that, hey, this is Spanish. I'm going to apply a Spanish model. I'm going to pull out the Spanish keywords and run them in the Spanish trends.
All right. And then last question for now. This is awesome. A lot of the Chat GPT type tools are great for generating possibilities, but they don't get the nuance of human experience, needs, and identities. Using the John Fetterman story as an example, there are no shortage of examples of how news outlets have missed the mark with its coverage and framing of his medical needs. What advice do you have for people navigating these waters where there can be a suggested headline that is SEO friendly, but that might miss the mark in terms of being sensitive towards concerns for diversity, equity, and inclusion?
That's a very good question. I'm trying to even think through how to even answer at this point. Thank you, Patrick. But I think, it's not easy to figure out these kinds of things. And I know that even with stories that, stories that where we work on this for a very long time, right? I'm just trying to think through other ideas, but like, I know that one of the things that I did over the last few months was worked on this kind of prepared before you publish a story, and newsrooms were very adamant about like, well, okay, like we wanted this, but now like, how do you protect my data? So there's a lot of questions still to kind of be answered. Um, but I think that the goal of this, right, is to give people the power to make good decisions, right? So people are still always going to be in the middle and in the mix. But we want to try to give people a little bit like other ideas, more diverse ideas, so they could figure out how to best position what they need.